Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this next interview. Now, 3 years into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the war continues to shape global security alliances and political landscapes. While Ukraine has shown remarkable resilience, the international community's support remains crucial, with shifting geopolitical dynamics, including aid, diplomacy, and a path to victory. How has the war evolved, and what are the key lessons and challenges ahead for Ukraine and its allies? Joining us today on TVP World to discuss this are Roman Waschuk, former Canadian ambassador to Ukraine, and Magdalena Marta Baran, editor-in-chief of Liberté. Hello, guys, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, good morning.
So this is, again, we're going into the third anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and I was wondering, Marta, Magdalena, how would you assess Ukraine's current position militarily, politically, and even economically as the war enters its fourth year?
Oh God, not the best position. We all know that, especially since Donald Trump became a president and he started his, in fact, crusade, but crusade for, well, not for freedom, not for democracy, in fact, because if you are aware of former U.S. strategies in war, we started from make the world safe for democracy, we had to crusade for freedom. Of course, we have the strategy called peace through strength, but right now we are not sure how to call this strategy, because it's definitely not a peace through strength, at least not a strength understood as we did it in the previous years during the previous wars. So for Ukraine right now, it is the fourth year is a really tough opening, because it's from one point of view, it's waiting for peace, and maybe we can talk about it later. It's not the just peace as it was expected at the end of Biden's presidency, but it's a kind of peace. In fact, a peace much closer to the vision of Vladimir Putin, probably, and the peace that is based on geopolitical reasons, but also on interest, American interest and business. And of course, Ukraine is losing territory, and it wasn't, I think, that weak ever before. I mean, from the beginning of the war, because right now it's not sure about the American support, and of course it has a constant European support, even with some propositions what to do and how to design the peace from a European point of view. But it's a kind of crash, so we need to wait. In fact, what will happen and what we'll hear from US right now, and what decisions will be taken by the European leaders.
All right, thank you so much. And Mr. Waschuk, can you also give us your input on how would you assess Ukraine's current situation right now?
Certainly, seen from the inside, things look a bit different. That is, economically, Ukraine is actually doing okay for a wartime situation. Exports last year increased 30% by volume, 15% by value. It's redirected agricultural produce away from problematic markets like Central and Eastern Europe, which was very sensitive in 23, but Asia, Africa, Western parts of the EU, etc. So one of the narratives we're hearing now from President Trump and the US administration is Ukraine is shattered, it's dead, it's lying on its side, which is, you're just showing the shattered video clip here, but most of the country isn't. Most of the country continues to operate. Most of the country continues to produce things like, I don't know, fire trucks, steel, drones, bread, etc. So I think what's changing is the international framing, thanks to the shift in U.S. position, but the actual military position, and again, Ukraine had been losing several hundred kilometers a month, square kilometers a month in the fall, but in January, February, almost no territory was lost. In fact, they've managed to regain some territory. So I think actual situation of Ukraine, it has not gone critical. The geopolitical situation of Ukraine, thanks to the reframing by the current U.S. administration, has gone critical.
All right, and speaking of the current U.S. administration, we're wondering about how the shifting political landscape is going to affect that going forward. We do have a statement made by the U.S. President Donald Trump, so let's take a look, and I'm hoping that you guys can help me give a comment on it.
We gave it in the form of nothing, so I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up, and I'm going to try and get the war settled, and I'm going to try and get all that death ended. So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But we feel so stupid. Here's Europe. And you know, it affects Europe. It doesn't really affect us, except we don't like to see two things. Number one, how Biden got us into this thing in the first place. Terrible. But why is it that he didn't ask for equalization? Europe should put up more money than us. But even if you said the same thing, how come we went so far out front? And he didn't know that Europe gets his money back. They did it in the form of a loan. We don't get our money back. We get nothing. So we're getting our money back. We're going to get our money back because it's not fair. It's just not fair. And we will see. But I think we're pretty close to a deal, and we better be close to a deal because that has been a horrible situation.
Magdalena, how would you comment on this statement made by the U.S. president? Is that fair to, well, have these sort of sentiments?
Oh, well, we can say that Trump is full of resentment, in fact. And it's not only about Ukraine, it's about policy towards European Union, towards NATO, and so on and so on. And of course, from our point of view, but also from NATO point of view, from point of view of the alliance, we should spend, not Poland, but most of the European countries should spend more money for defense. But going back to the Ukraine, we heard American president speaking a lot last week, starting from calling Zelensky a dictator, starting from accusing Ukraine and Europe, in fact, of starting the war as such. Right now, his rhetoric has changed, and of course, it's partly because there is a chance for a new agreement about the rare earth metals or rare elements, not in the form that was offered to the Ukraine at the very beginning, that in fact was just give us a 50% and we are not going to promise you anything, including no guarantees of security for Ukraine after a war, and we will still be talking with the Russian president, who is in fact a war criminal. So this is one thing, and we can see that the rhetoric of Trump, of course, it is still the one speaking, we America, we spend so much money, so we need to get those money back in any form. But it's, well, maybe after what Mike Pence had said and other Republican senators, reminding Trump how the war got started, maybe the rhetoric is a bit, I don't want to say gentler, but it's...
Probably is compared to his previous rhetoric,
to what he said at the beginning of the week. It's like, maybe not absolutely new Trump, but still the very same Trump treating politics as business, treating America as a company who just deserve to get its interests fulfilled.
Ambassador Waschuk, like Magda mentioned here, this presidency seems to be very transactional, and I think even some of his supporter base have the same sentiment when it comes to support in Ukraine. Is there any way that Ukraine or even EU allies can convince Trump in a more transactional way, or instead of the usual sort of presenting the European perspective, is there anything that can convince the U.S. president, coming from like an American-centric perspective, that Ukraine is worth supporting?
You know, I would like to be optimistic, and I think the Polish president has been an optimist on this score, but I fear not. Basically, and I'm now 5 years retired from diplomacy, so I can say this, President Trump is a malignant liar. He makes stuff up. As a Canadian, I can tell you, he insists that Canada is being subsidized to the tune of $260 billion a year, which is simply not true. So, and he signed a new trade agreement with Canada in his first presidency, which he now describes as terrible and has forgotten about it completely. So being pragmatic, taking this kind of very sensible approach, even a sensible business approach, is no guarantee that he will remember this 24 hours later. His basic attitude to Ukraine, I think, is shaped by the impeachment in his first term. He simply does not like the president. He does not like the country, which he associates with political trouble and failure. And whenever he speaks extemporaneously, it comes out. Resentment. I think Ms. Baran is quite right that resentment is the driving force here.
All right. I think we can agree that Trump does put some personal sentiment when it comes to his dealings with various politicians. Now, I'm also wondering, because we do know that, well, the Polish president is actually the first European leader to meet Trump in the White House. Do you think perhaps having a better kind of relationship, at least personally, with the U.S. president, that Poland will be able to sway Trump in his mind even just a little bit?
You know, I'm smiling because it wasn't the White House, it was the backstage of the convention.
Right.
And exactly the White House described it as a short meeting, like a backstage, just, let's say, reminding about the alliance, reminding that Poland is the strongest ally of US in NATO, reminding that Poland spent this around 5% of the GDP for defending. But the thing is that for Poland, it was, in fact, the first president who will meet Donald Trump in the White House will be Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. But it wasn't a meeting that was in fact expected, because it was a meeting expected for 1 hour. It was about 10 minutes, and some of us who have been watching their live relation in one of the TVs, so could see Duda, so President Duda, walking from one wall to another, being really nervous. So from one point of view, yeah, we heard Trump showing the friendship for Polish president, but also for Robert Fico, for the president of Argentina, who was also present, maybe not in the first row during the convention. And of course, he underlined the alliance, but in fact, he said nothing. It wasn't a talk that Poland expected. When you take a look at what Mike Waltz put on X just after, was that, oh yeah, we still have a strong alliance, and the Polish president in fact decides about defense, and we know how it looked like from let's say a real perspective, and we know what is the position of the president in Poland, that it's not the strongest political leadership, and even from the point of view of the cabinet itself, it's rather some diplomacy, and I think it's a good step to appear there, to be seen. But does it help? If it helps Poland in the maybe not a battle, but Poland trying to be a leader in one of the leading countries in the European Union, I'm not that sure.
All right, so it does seem like there's still a little bit of turbulent times ahead. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.